Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees barely win 2 of 3 against the MLB worst Colorado Rockies. So last episode, I was saying at a bare minimum, you got to win 2 out of 3, and that's what they did. Frustratingly lost game 1, which was a very winnable game. Totally destroyed the Rockies in game 2 with a 10-run fifth inning. And the last game, the rubber match, there was a rain delay involved, and the Yankees barely held on. So it was an escape. And the Rockies have not won a series all year long. Their record is 9-44, which is kind of unfathomable. To be honest, it's as bad as the White Sox were last year. This Rocky team miraculously is worse. Um, so this episode kind of toes the line a little bit where um they win the series, so they've won 6 straight, but I don't know, it's not one to heap a whole lot of praise on the Yankees for this in a vacuum. There's good things that happened for sure, and we'll discuss that, but, um, would have liked for the sweep, but thank goodness they didn't lose the series because that would have been truly embarrassing. It wouldn't have been season altering, but it certainly would have been people would have been joking about it for sure. So they avoided that. So all in all, and especially with the fact they lost the first game, won the next two, the order of those things is also nice as well. Because if I had hopped on here for this episode and they had, coming off of them losing, it certainly would have been a lot worse. So that's, I guess a good thing as well. Um, you know, Colorado, there isn't much that they are good at, truly. I mean, pitching, hitting, and thus why they're 9-44. But they actually did provide halfway decent pitching. Now, obviously, game 2 ends up becoming a mess in the middle of it, but really, games 1 and 3, the Yankee offense was fairly held down, especially considering the environment of Coors Field, which has been, the best hitters park since its existence. Um, but the Yankees, and look, the Yankee offense, it's really been the Yankee pitching, honestly, that has been, to me, the main catalyst of them winning all these series. The offense has been good, don't get me wrong, but the pitching, especially the starting pitching, has been excellent, and a lot of the same again here. Clark Schmidt wasn't great. Um, he didn't have it really in this one. Max Fried again, game 2 was fantastic, and then game 3, Will Warren, a very shaky first inning, then settles down for a very solid next 3 innings before there was a rain delay that ended his game. So let's talk about game 1. Um, and it would be Clark Schmidt on the bump, and he would lose, which some blame goes to Tim Hill, and we'll talk about why, but a little bit of that goes to Tim Hill. But Schmidt is the one that gets the loss, so he drops the 1 and 2. And then for the Rockies, it was Tanner Gordon, who improves to 1-1. So first win of the year for him. 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts for Gordon. And again, for Schmidt, doesn't go 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, which is a good amount. But he even with the 8 strikeouts, he still was having trouble putting hitters away. It just didn't seem like he had it all night. And he was almost able to escape, essentially, with like a 5-inning, 1-run type outing. But it ends up not going that way. Odd man out of this Yankee lineup here would be Cody Bellinger. So after Bellinger loses that hitting streak and the last game of the Texas series, they do sit him out for game 1. He was due for a rest, so that does make sense. No surprises there. And DJ LeMahieu would actually start all 3 games at second base against his former team. I would anticipate that in game 1 against the Angels, that LeMahieu would probably be due for a sit. That's just kind of speculation, but that's what I would predict. So no, we're jumping ahead on the Aaron Judge front. We'll get there. Um, he would single in the first inning with 1 out, and then with 2 out, Paul Goldschmidt gets his first triple of the year. RBI triple Goldschmidt to make it 1-0. So Paul Goldschmidt makes his contributions yet again in this series. That signing has been nothing short of brilliant by Brian Cashman. He has turned back the clock in a pretty big way, and he has been a key to this early season success for the Yankees. So one of the Yanks there, and Schmidt, even though he hadn't given up a run until the 4th, like He wasn't very pitch efficient. He just didn't look great, right? Based on the eye test and nothing else. Um, a big moment in this game is the fourth inning, where Dominguez singles, still second, then Anthony Volpe walks. And then Austin Wells was a pretty tough luck game for Wells. And we'll talk more about Wells as the episode progresses. But Wells hits a line drive smash, ground ball, one hop to the second baseman of the Rockies, Adel Amador. And Amador just makes an unbelievable play to get the double play 4-6-3. So what could have been, the Yankees are already up 1-0. What could have been a pretty big inning potentially ends up in nothing as DJ LeMahieu grounds out to the end. And then the bottom of the fourth, leadoff walk Ryan McMahon by Schmidt, which you don't want. Then there was a wild pitch. That has McMahon go to second. And here's what I want to say, and this is for Wells and Escarra. That's been a problem lately. Now, most of these go down as wild pitches, but the catchers, they need to work on that. I don't remember that being an issue previously, but like in the last week or so, there have been a lot of situations where they're giving players extra bases. Now, look, some of them are probably plays that can't be named, but I do think some of them can be. And because of that wild pitch, blame it on Schmidt, blame it on Wells, whoever you want. It's a 2-out RBI steal for Kyle Farmer to make it 1-1. So that was costly. Rockies tied up, and then the Yankees respond right away in the fifth. Aaron Judge, in his first regular season game at Coors Field, hits his 17th homer of the season. So Judge off of Gordon makes it 2-1. But then in the bottom of the fifth, Clark Schmidt, who was very close on numerous occasions to getting out of the fifth, doesn't do so with 2 out. Single Tovar, single Hunter Goodman, and it makes it first and third, 2 out and then Tim Hill comes on for McMahon, which is the right move by Boone because Tim Hill, I like him finishing innings against lefties. Tim Hill is great against lefties, but this didn't work out. And I think collectively, because Tim Hill has struggled versus righties, now it's a little bit of a frustration. But I think those two things we need to keep separate. But Ryan McMahon with a 2-run double off the top of the wall in right center field gives the Rockies a 3-2 lead. So those are Schmidt's runs, which is why he takes the loss and gives up 3 runs. But again, Tim Hill is part of that blame too. He gets the final out of the fifth. Then, Yankee offense kind of gets stifled a bit by the Rockies the rest of the way. Hill actually pitches a 1-2-3-6. Jake Bird, who's a really good reliever. He did struggle in game 3, but that was a little bit rain aided. But Bird pitches a really nice 1-2-3-7. Although I will say Austin Wells strikes out looking at what should have been ball 4. And earlier, Bebas, same thing. The ump was not very good. Could have been a couple of walks that were strikeouts for the Yanks. Yeri De Los Santos pitches a scoreless 7th inning, although, again, there was a single and wild pitch involved, but he got out of it. Then in the 8th, Seth Halverson, the hard-throwing righty for the Rockies, comes out in the 8th. Leadoff walk Grisham, but then a Judge double play ends the threat in that inning. Bottom of the 8th, Brent Hedrick, in his first appearance since being called up for Fernando Cruz going on the injured list. And Hedrick goes 1-2-3. Been very impressed by Hedrick in his few opportunities with the Yankees. Want to see more of him. 9th inning, closer Zach Agnos comes on for Colorado. And there would be a 1-out walk for Dominguez. But then Volpe grounds out. A nice play by McMahon at third, actually. Bare hand play. Dominguez goes to second. And then so it leads to runner on second, 2 out, and Austin Wells with a soft line out to the shortstop Ezequiel Tovar, and Colorado wins 3-2. What was unfortunate is Cody Bellinger was left on the bench. I would have been fine if he pinch hit at some point. I'm not surprised he didn't, right? Like, they're not going to pinch hit for Volpe or Wells in that spot, even though I think that for Bellinger, I think that's perfectly reasonable, but they didn't. I think Bellinger probably would have pinch hit for LeMahieu if it got there, but it doesn't. And the Yankees lose to the really, really bad Rockies in game 1. So my thoughts there are, I'm frustrated, but you better win the next 2, which the Yankees did, but in very different fashions for both. Game 2, it's a Max Fried and just offensive explosion combination. And the game 2 is where you kind of see the Rockies just being horrible. And Max Fried wins to go to 7-0. 7 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, ERA 1.29. So, he continues his mastery. And then for the Rockies, it was lefty Kyle Freeland. On the flip side, he is 0-7, 4 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 8 runs, 4 of those earned, 3 walks and 3 strikeouts for Freeland. In this game, it would be Ben Rice, who was on the bench. And so it was Dominguez's DH and everything else, basically what you'd expect out of this lineup. Um, and Yankees again score first, and it's Aaron Judge. So he homered in game one, he homers in game two. 18th homer of the year for him makes it 1-0. But this game actually had a very similar feel to game one because in the bottom of the fourth, after the Yankees scored in the top of the first, the Rockies actually tie it up. And it would be on this one, um, a 2-out RBI triple for Michael Toglia to make it 1-1. After Tovar had a single at 1 out, actually made it over to second on a error by Paul Goldschmidt on a pickoff attempt. Max Fried picked off like two Rockies. He is, it reminds me of Andy Pettit, honestly. He has a very deceptive pickoff move, but the Rockies tied up at one there. But then in the fifth inning, they scored 10 runs. And it's the second 10-run inning of the season for the Yankees. The other one was against the San Diego Padres in that seventh inning of what was game two of that series, which was a really nice one at the time. I believe that was the Michael King game against Clark Schmidt. But here, 10 runs in the fifth. And let's just go through it all. Wells single, RBI double Peraza, walk Goldschmidt, then Trent Grisham reaches on an error, which was actually pretty big. A bad throw by Kyle Freeland at first, which should have been second and third, no out, ends up being a run in and still second and third, which should have been second and third, 1 out. Yeah, is now a run scored, second and third, no out. They intentionally walk Judge, Cody Bellinger sack fly, Volpe RBI single, Jason Dominguez sack fly, DJ LeMahieu single. They take out Freeland, and then it's a wild pitch by Angel Chiavelli. And Austin Wells gets an RBI double to make it 8-1. So 2 hits in the inning for Wells, who was also pretty heavily involved in that Padre 10-run inning. Peraza walk, RBI single Goldschmidt to make it 9-1. And then Trent Grisham gets a 2-run double to make it 11-1. And then Judge strikes out. So, yeah, just a crazy inning right there. And so it kind of left no doubt, obviously, what was going to happen from there. Fried did a really nice job the rest of the way. Top of the eighth, we go. At this point, you have kind of new players in for the Rockies and Yanks, but it would be an RBI double for Anthony Volpe after a leadoff triple by Cody Bellinger, and then a RBI single for DJ LeMahieu against his former team to make it 13-1. Fried would get the first out of the eighth, then Ian Hamilton, who's been struggling lately, would get the final 5 outs. The Yankees win 13-1. So total domination there. Then game three, which was way, way more nerve-wracking than it ever should have been, but it was. In this game, it would be Trent Grisham who would be the one that would sit. JC Escarra, he would play in the day game after night game. I was surprised that Yorby Bibas wasn't in a lot of versus righties, but I guess it was kind of because Sanzatella is a reverse splits guy. So that kind of explains that. Again, I would expect Bibas to certainly be in first game against the Angels. But again, Grisham out. He would come in to play defense later on. But Escarra, I want to talk about him. He gets 3 hits in this game. JC Escarra has very quietly done a very nice job. Now, I don't think he's going to take any playing time away from Austin Wells, but it's just something to think about. As Wells has been struggling, I think that he'll get out of it a little bit. But Escarra, don't get me wrong, he hasn't lit the world on fire, but he's been very, very capable, behind the plate as well. So it's something that I think that we might see Escarra be someone that ends up with some pretty solid offensive numbers. And he really, to me, was the player of the game in this game for the Yankees, at least as far as the offense was concerned. Will Warren, more good than bad. It's too bad because Will Warren was basically, due to the weather, was robbed of a win here, in all likelihood. He goes 4 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. It was a bad first inning, but really, really settled in innings 2, 3, and 4. He had only thrown 57 pitches. Again, I think he was headed for at least a 6-inning start. Who knows? And it could have even been more than that, but I think it's within reason to say, hey, maybe he would have given up some more runs or something, but I think he was in it for another couple innings. So yeah, a little bit of bad luck there, I guess, as far as, again, the win-loss column. For the Rockies, it was Antonio Sanzatella. And he wasn't very good. The loss drops him to 1-9 with a 6.5 ERA. 4 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts for Sanzatella. And yeah, the Yankees bullpen, that has to do a lot of heavy lifting, but we'll talk about how they did. But this was a game where the Yankees again score in the first inning, and it would be um, an RBI ground out by Cody Bellinger to get it going after a couple of singles by Goldschmidt and Judge. And just want to say right out, Goldschmidt ends the series with a 345 batting average and Judge 397. It's going to be tough for him to get back over 400. I think he can still get there, but ultimately, like, it's just hard to sustain that. It really is. But Will Warren struggles in the first in a pretty big way. Double Jordan Beck, single Ezekiel Tovar, walk Hunter Goodman, a wild pitch by Will Warren, which, again, I think Escarra deserves some blame for it here. Makes it 1-1. Then Ryan McMahon with RBI groundout gives the Rockies the lead 2-1. Then a big Brenton Doyle strikeout, and then Toglia on a nice play by Anthony Volpe grounds out. They had to review it. It was overturned in the Yankees' favor, and it keeps it at a 1-run deficit. To which then Anthony Volpe triples to start the second, and JC Escarra gets an RBI double to tie it up at 2. They would strand him from there, unfortunately. Warren really settles in. And then finally, the Yankees get going in the fifth, right around the time there's a really bad rain in Denver. 1-out single Goldschmidt, 1-out walk Rice. They bring on Jake Bird, who, like I said, he was in game 1. And while it's really pouring, Aaron Judge RBI double makes it 3-2. Intentional walk Cody Bellinger, and a nice at bat by Jason Dominguez to work a sac fly to make it 4-2. And then in the middle, there was a pass ball during the Anthony Volpe at bat, and then while it was a full count to Volpe, they get the tarp on the field. So about an hour and 45-minute rain delay, which did have an effect. The Sanzatella, he was already out. Will Warren was going to stay in, so I feel like it did more negatively affect the Yanks. And then Anthony Volpe lines out off of Jimmy Herget, the righty, out of the rain delay. Then Jonathan Loaisiga comes on, and Loaisiga pitches a very sound fifth, goes 1-2-3. And then in the bottom of the sixth, gets the first 2 outs, and then gets into some trouble. A single by Ryan McMahon and a double by Brenton Doyle on a play that Jason Dominguez, the route wasn't great. Again, I like what I've seen from Dominguez at the plate. I still don't love what I've seen from him in the outfield. He does worry me. So Loaisiga gets another outing. It's the first time Loaisiga gave up an earned run this year, but to me, it's like kind of a mixed bag. I like what I've seen from Loaisiga, but I still walk away from each outing feeling like, okay, like I still don't feel amazing about what I saw. But also, like, it makes sense where he is in the pecking order. Even taking Fernando Cruz out of the equation for now, he is still like number 4, and it's not as if he's so high up in the ranks of the bullpen. He's kind of where he should be, in my opinion. And give credit to Mark Leiter Jr., who actually gets credited with the win because it's at the official scorer's discretion because Warren only went 4 innings, and they could have, in theory, given it to Loaisiga or Leiter Jr. I think they correctly give it to Leiter Jr., who gets his 3rd win of the season. It wasn't without a little bit of a shaky 6th inning there. There's a wild pitch again and a walk to Toglia, but then he gets Mickey Moniak to ground out to keep that Yankee lead. Bottom of the 7th, though, Leiter Jr. 1-2-3 inning, including a couple of strikeouts. So like that, again, I think Leiter Jr. has been a lot more good than bad, and has been a pretty underratedly key piece to the bullpen. Keeps the Yankee lead at 1. And then a very big insurance run by the Yankees in the 8th off of Tyler Kinley. 1-out walk Dominguez, steals second, and then with 2 out after a Volpe strikeout, JC Escarra with a big RBI single to score Dominguez to make it 5-3. Devin Williams pitches the 8th, and it was a little bit shaky. There was a single in the mix. There was a walk as well, but he also struck out at the side. So Devin Williams continues to put up scoreless innings. Again, I'm still not in a place where I fully trust him, but admittedly, it's been much, much better than what it was. And he is very securely in the 8th inning role. Let's jump over to the bottom of the 9th. Luke Weaver. He struggled, right? And we haven't seen that this year, but he still gets the save. He still gets his 8th save. By the way, Devin Williams picks up his 6th hold, but it was a leadoff home run to start the inning by Mickey Moniak, his 4th homer of the year. So that's Luke Weaver's 1st homer allowed of the season. And luckily it was a 2-run lead, but it got a little bit shakier from there after a lineup by Nick Martini, a bloop single for Amador, and then a single for Jordan Beck to make it 1st and 2nd 1 out. So this was on the verge of disaster, but Luke Weaver kind of just does what Luke Weaver does. He gets Tovar to fly out, and he gets a weak ground out to himself, to the pitcher. Hunter Goodman, that is the one that hit it, and the Yankees hold on for the 5-4 win. So Weaver's ERA goes up to 0.76. Hopefully, this is more of a product of Coors Field, which again, it is tough, and especially on someone like Weaver with his arsenal. But the Yankees get the win 5-4. Go to 32-20, being 12 games over is their high watermark for the season, and we go from Colorado to Anaheim to face the Angels. The Angels were on a long winning streak, I think upwards of 7 or 8 games, I want to say, but did lose the last couple of games to the Miami Marlins. And ultimately, this is a very winnable series. It won't be easy. Like, again, these West Coast series never are. And you saw the Yankees, they took 2 out of 3 from the Rockies. So to expect them to sweep the Angels, I think, is completely foolish. And again, I look at this as being a series, hey, take 2 of 3. So for this series, for the Yanks, it's not official on MLB.com, but I've seen it elsewhere, so I feel pretty confident in saying it. Ryan Yarbrough will get the opening start of this series for the Yankees, Yarbrough has been really, really good, so hopefully he can continue that. And then for the Angels, it'll be Jack Kohanowitz for the Angels. He actually started last year. He started 11 games last year. And his numbers are really nothing to write home about at all this year. Last year's were actually, he's not a strikeout guy. Let's put it that way. So he should be hittable. He is a righty as well. And then game 2 will be Carlos Rodon, who's been really good lately, against another lefty, Tyler Anderson. Anderson, a veteran who's really, bounced around a lot at this point in his career, but has kind of had some stability. He's been with the Angels for the last 3 years now. He's a crafty pitcher. I would expect that to be probably your best pitching matchup of the series. And then game 3 will be, who would be going for the Yankees? This would land on Clark Schmidt. So Clark Schmidt against Yusei Kikuchi, another fairly crafty lefty, a little bit more power stuff for Kikuchi than Anderson, but the Yankees are used to Kikuchi from his recent years with the Blue Jays. And he's one of those guys, low ERA, very high whip. It can be hit or miss when it comes to Kikuchi. So I kind of look to game 1, even though Yarbrough, I guess, is kind of the least certain, I guess, of the 3. I like that Yankee matchup hitter-wise more so than games 2 or 3. So hopefully they can get out to that, winning that first game. But, it's 6 straight series wins. It's a 6-game lead on the Tampa Bay Rays in the AL East. Things are good for the Yankees right now. And, hopefully reinforcements are coming back in the not too distant future in the ways of a Giancarlo Stanton, Jazz Chisholm Jr., just to name a few. So that could be on the horizon. But look, there's no rush for that as well at this point. But so the road trip continues, 3 down, 6 to go. It's, I believe, their longest road trip of the season. And now it shifts to California versus the Angels before really a highly anticipated matchup with the Dodgers in a World Series rematch. But, we'll wait till we get there. First things first, it's the Angels after a too much of a sweat job series against the Rockies, but they are able to take 2 out of 3 in Denver. And now they will take on the Los Angeles Angels.